when we're talking about Windows 10, over here in the lower left-hand corner of your screen is the Start button. Okay? Over on the right, all of these things that you see, these are tiles. And I like to place my tiles here because then I don't have to have a messy desktop. And I like my desktop to stay pretty well clean. Let's get back to adding a tile to our start screen. Over here on the left are all of your applications that are installed on your computer. So if you scroll down this list and you find something that you would like to create a shortcut for, then you can point to it with your mouse, right click on it, and click on Pin to Start. And that'll put it over here on the right. Now, I don't really want Google to be that big. So I can right click on this tile and I can go to resize and say, I want it to be small. And then I can even click on it and move it to where I'd like it to be. Simple as that. So again, in the lower left-hand corner, there's a window. It's got 4 squares. That's your Start button. All of your programs are listed over here on the left, and your tiles are over here on the right. I'm going to click on my tiles and see. Can you see my tiles now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now, if you want to get rid of a tile, like there's all these tiles there that you don't need, like a bunch of games by default, you can right-click on any tile and click on Unpin from Start, and it will go away. And then you can move a different tile in its place if you like. And so that is how we help to keep our start screen nice and organized. You definitely want to follow all of the settings that Michelle has set here in understanding Windows 10 and setting options. So you definitely want to do that when you go through it this week. You want to go through and make sure that your system settings reflect those that we have here. You do not have to worry about the assignment Windows 10 upgrade to Pro. That is for people who have Windows 10 Home. You guys already have Windows 10 Pro, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, let's see. So we've talked about tiles and the start screen. Okay, let's talk about bookmarking websites. If you do not already know, up here, there is a star in the address bar. And if you click on that star, you can add the current web address to your favorites. And you can call it whatever you want, ACE Computer Skills. And you can save it in favorites or into your favorites bar. I like to save things on my favorites bar so that I can get to it more quickly. So I click on add. Now, I've got a lot of things in my bar. So they are going to show anything that goes over the space you have will show via a drop down over here on the right. And you can see here is the little website link that I've made. And I have one of those for ACE. I have one of those for RealTime Coach. I have one of those for the forum. So I think it's a great idea to bookmark your favorite sites. It's a good thing. That's a pretty simple thing to do. Okay, purpose and properties of USBs. This is kind of a big deal. A USB audio device, when you first plug it in, And I'm going to unplug mine here so that I can show you that mine looks just like yours. This is what you have. And when you look at it with the word Sound Blaster on top, when you look at it this way, you can see that there are two holes. One of them has a picture of a microphone, and the other one has a picture of a headset. Your mask should plug in to the one with the image of the microphone on it, okay? And then we plug this device into our computers. When we plug it into our computers for the very first time, it will often set itself as the default playback device. How do we know what the default playback device is? If you go to the lower right-hand corner of your screen, you will see a little speaker with lines in front of it. If you right-click on that icon and click on Open Sound Settings, it's going to show you what your default output is and what your default input is. Your default input should normally be the sound card of your computer. Now, for the purposes of this class, I normally set my input device as my desktop speaker so that you can all hear me well. And then I set my output device as an external USB speaker that I have. And I use this because the sound is much louder and I want you to hear when I do a playback. And so I plug this up and I utilize this. If I'm using a headset, then I don't need to use an external speaker because I can hear really well in my headset. But if I'm just listening out loud, sometimes I need it to be a little bit louder. And so that's why I use an external speaker, because it can be louder than the internal speaker inside the computer. Okay. Your output device and input device is, I believe, the RealTech. So your output device and your input device should both say RealTech if that is your sound card. And Michelle's going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute when she talks about creating the new user and all of that. So if ever you are listening to an audio file or you're listening to yourself and doing correction mechanism and you cannot hear, if you come over here to the lower right-hand corner and click on that little speaker and go to Open Sound Settings, and for output, what you hear, you'll definitely want to make sure it's set to the RealTech if that is your sound card. Now, if you're using a headset and you're plugged in to the sound card directly in your computer, you're going to need to make sure that it's set to the sound card. If you're using this, but you have it plugged into the Sound Blaster, then it would need to say Sound Blaster in the output device. So it's important that you tell your system what you want the output device to be and the input device to be. Okay? So that is, there's one other thing about USB properties that we do, and that is in Device Manager. We go to Device Manager and we set these devices not to turn off. So if I click on the little search bar in the lower left-hand corner of my screen and I type in Device Manager, and we'll come up and will it come up? show me device manager. Okay, it should show us this. You're going to come across this in the computer skills class. And Michelle and I already checked this all for all of you, so it should be right. But definitely you're going to want to make sure that it is set to not turn off the USB when you are using the USB device. Okay, properties of the internal sound card I pretty much covered just now when we went to sound and input and output devices. But I'm just saying here again that the internal sound card is what we normally listen from. It's not your only option, but it is what we normally listen from. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and now.
Okay. First of all, I would like to address the whole confusion that we've had with RealTime Coach. If you would turn to on the outline that Adria sent you today. So what I have decided to do, what Adria and I have decided to do together is at this point this morning, I printed out and I added all school. Okay, so again, let's get back to RealTime Coach. I'm sorry, I can be all over the place. But we got some clarifications yesterday from RealTime Coach, and you can see the clarification at the bottom of page 2 and page 3 that gives us a better explanation of the practice miss words. Because of this explanation, we are going to do a couple of things a little bit different moving forward. First of all, the emails that I sent out yesterday to those of you who had shown text mode, Adria and I have decided to give you the credit that you received on those dictations. So everyone who received those emails yesterday, you now have the grade, the highest grade shown based on what RealTime Coach has showed me. Okay, so please do not worry about that. The scores are in there, they're active. And as of this morning, every person has done all of their first week videos. So congratulations. Okay, so everyone got their first week dictations completed. We have a few people who have done extra and a few people who have done a lot extra. So good job, keep up the work, keep practicing, because you will only, by practicing, you will only enhance your skill and get better. So at this point, I'm gonna move forward with the next thing that we're gonna do, which is creating a Dragon user. And if you have any questions about the RealTime Coach, oh, I did forget to say one thing. Moving forward, please do not use practice miss words, because if you do, it will show up as text mode, and anything beyond this point the rule will apply that if you have used text mode, you will get a 0. Today, we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to show you how to do correction mechanism, which in our opinion is more important than practicing the miss words. Okay, so no more practice miss words and move forward, and we won't have to deal with this text mode at all. So I'm going to share my screen now. Not sure if you can see it. Yes, it looks like you can. So what I'm going to cover is creating a user in Dragon Naturally Speaking. So I am going to double click on the Dragon icon to open it up. And I am going to click on New. at the welcome to nuance screen, I want to stop and say something before we move forward. I know that you guys have just all created Dragon users, and you may ask the question, why do I need to create a new user? There are going to be times when your Dragon user may get corrupted and it's not working very well, and you want to create a new user because chances are it will give you better recognition. And I know that in week 1, you were assigned to create a user, and I'm going to go over the procedure of creating a new user from start to finish. So I'm going to click on next, and I'm going to type in my name, and I'm going to do Michelle Mask. And because I have so many different USB devices, I'm going to also list my sound device, which is the Sound Blaster Play. And for me, I need to know this because I have so many different devices. Now, here is one thing that I saw an error happening last week as everyone was creating their users. Even though you will be transcribing work from other people, Dragon will not be the ones transcribing it. You will be the person re-speaking it. So please do not check this box when you are creating a user for your mask. And everyone should have a user for their mask at this point. So I'm going to click on next, and it's going to ask me about my speech options. Now, I'm in the United States, but as I understand it, you guys should be selecting United Kingdom. Is that correct, Adria? I'm going to keep it at United States simply because that's where I am. And as far as the accent, we typically leave it at standard and let Dragon adjust and base it on how it thinks we're speaking. So we're going to click on next. And I'm going to choose the Sound Blaster Play. Now, that is the device that all of you have for your mask. So that should be the device you select when you're creating a user. So I'm going to click on next. And it talks about positioning your microphone. Now, because the mask is a closed environment, you basically are going to put the mask to your face, and that's going to be the position. Now, I'm going to show you, let me just move this over so I can see. Okay. Oop. Oop. Sorry about that. Okay, so when I have the same seal as you, and so what we suggest to you is putting the mask to your face like this. And sometimes I push up a little on the bottom to make it fit better around my chin. So that is how it is recommended that you use it. This seal gives you the ability to move your mouth in a better fashion, so you're speaking more naturally, because some of the other seals that people use actually it limits the way that you can move your mouth. And therefore, in my opinion, it limits my recognition because I'm speaking in a different manner than I naturally do. So I'm going to put the mask to my face, and I'm going to click on next. Now, I'm going to put the mask to my face, and I'm going to click on start. And when I click on start, I'm going to read the text in this box on the checked microphone screen. And you will continue speaking until it stops. I'm going to click on next, and it's going to customize itself for me. Now, that was less than a minute that we spoke into the mask. In years past, you had to speak for hours and hours just to get Dragon to understand you. So Dragon has come a long way. And one thing that Diane mentioned last week, and I want to reiterate, if you have a cold, if you have a fever blister, it's a good idea for you to clean your equipment, your mask seal, your sponges, so that you don't keep reinfecting yourself. And in regards to a fever blister, I had a fever blister this past weekend, so I took alcohol swabs and I wiped down my seal so that I wouldn't reinfect myself. Do you have anything to add to that, Adria?
The only thing that I would like to add is remember that Diane told you about these little things that come in shoe boxes and handbags and furniture. And she suggested that you put them inside your mask and leave your mask face up when you're letting it dry. So the only thing I'd like to remind you is take them out before you dictate into that mask.
Oh,
They're not good for you.
okay. So just so you know, I have one in there.
Ooh.
I forgot that it was in there. So I'm going to take it out. There we go.
There you go.
And I have to put my foam back in. Remember that it's important that when you're creating your user, it's not a good idea not to have any foam in your mask because of the acoustics. It will sound as though the sound is bouncing off the sides and you will not get good recognition. So it's important to make sure you have some stuffing in your mask. And I'm just going to put my seal back on and my muffle mitt back on. Okay. Now, let's get back to the creation of the user. Here I am. It says, help us improve Dragon. I typically say don't enable this now. Adrian may have a different opinion of that, but I'm just going to say don't enable this now.
I agree, always.
Okay. So I'm going to just click on next to this and then finish. Now we have the fun part. The first thing that I typically do is I'm going to exit out of the interactive tutorial because we don't need to use that. We use Dragon very differently than the average person because the average person, Dragon was basically created, the professional edition, for people writing business letters and things of that nature, and you're not going to be doing that. So a lot of things that Dragon does don't really apply to you because you're going to be using it in a very specific way for dictation only. So here we are, and we have our Dragon floating bar at the top of the screen. If we go to Tools and Options, we're going to go through our options, and I'm going to try to go slow because I usually go very fast. First of all, here on the correction screen, I only want automatically add words to active vocabulary and automatically playback on correction checked. Everything else here should be unchecked. Okay, I click on apply. I'm going to go to commands, which is the next option in the list. And on this screen, everything should be unchecked. It would be really nice if it had an uncheck all feature, but okay. And once everything is unchecked here, there's a button that says more commands. We click on that, and again, we uncheck everything here. Click on OK, click on Apply. It's going to say you must restart Dragon for HTML. We'll just click on OK, click on OK. And next, we're going to Appearance. On Appearance, we want to check Dock to Top, Show Extras, Anchor, Show Preliminary Results. I prefer to have it never hide. And I don't like to show tips because, as I said, the tips are for the average user, not necessarily for you. So again, we want docked to top, show extras, anchor, and show preliminary results, and do not show tips. Click on apply. And you'll notice it has changed my Dragon bar from the dark gray to the lighter gray. And the show extras that I checked, what I like about this is on the second line of the bar, it tells me the mask, the name of the user, and it tells me my dictation source, which is very important. So next, we're going to skip over hotkeys. We're going to skip over playback text-to-speech because neither one of those apply to us. We're going to go straight to miscellaneous. On the miscellaneous tab, we want to, first of all, I like to uncheck everything here. And on the speed versus accuracy, what you'll find is Dragon analyzes your computer and kind of gives you a baseline of where it thinks you should start. And I don't remember what the instructions say, Adria. Do you recall?
I like it one tick from the left.
So right here?
Yep.
Okay, great. And basically what the speed versus accuracy does is this is directly related to how fast your text is going to drop. If it's towards fastest response, that means the text will drop faster. If it's towards more accurate, most accurate, the text will take longer to drop, but it can be more accurate. As you start working with Dragon, we suggest a baseline for everyone that should work for everyone. And as time goes on, you may find that you want to move the slide bar, and you're welcome to do that after class and you start working. You just have to be prepared for the latency that you're going to see if you move it towards more accurate when your text is dropping on the screen. Okay, and another thing on this screen that we have to address is put the microphone to sleep after X minute, 5 minutes of silence. Here, I like to change this to 120 because we don't want Dragon to put the microphone to sleep for us. We want to control that. Okay, and we'll click on apply. And just click on OK. And then the last thing that we're going to look at here is the data tab. On the data tab, I like to have store corrections in archive and conserve disk space required by user profile for portability. The thing that is most important in my opinion on this screen is the disk space reserved for playback. How this works is when you're dictating, Dragon is creating a proprietary file in the background called the DRA file that links the text and the audio. Each word is time-stamped and synchronized to the audio for correction purposes so that you can train Dragon. We are going to go over correction today, and this is important because correction mechanism is, in our opinion, one of the best ways to improve your accuracy aside from diction. And so for every hour that you are on the record and you're dictating, it's 100 megabytes per hour. So we like to set this to either 1,000 or, Adria, what do you set yours to? I think you go higher than that, right?
I usually do 5555 or 9999.
Okay.
But
And
for them, 5555 is fine.
okay. And let me tell you the reason we put the number so high, because when you're dictating and you reach the threshold that's listed here, Dragon will stop dropping text, period, end of conversation. So you want it at a number that you will not attain so that does not happen. Okay? We're going to set it, we're going to leave the next two things as they are. And down at the bottom, the run accuracy tuning as scheduled by your administrator, I believe the options tell you to uncheck that. Is that?
I'm not sure.
Not sure. Okay. Well, we'll leave it unchecked and we click on apply and okay. That's our general options. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to go to tools and auto format options. This is where we tell Dragon how to format different things within the text. We want to uncheck web and email addresses, uncheck street addresses, and units of measure. Typically in transcripts, we do not want to see, like, for example, he had 5 kilograms of cocaine. We would not want to see 5 kg. We would want to see 5 kilograms, the whole word. And so by unchecking units of measure, it's going to make sure that it's not abbreviated. And same for the street addresses. It's going to put the word street instead of ST period. Okay, now, and for the top part of this, I keep the rest of the things checked that were there by default. The next important thing is insert 2 spaces after period. By default, Dragon is only going to put 1 space after the period. So by checking this, you can assure that when you say period, that it'll put the 2 spaces. I believe this also applies to full stop. Okay. And allow pauses in formatted phrases. This is important because, for example, if someone says, I had $550.25, for example, it's going to, even though you pause, it's going to put it together as 500 whatever dollars and 26 cents. It'll put it together as one unit instead of having 525 and then 26 cents separately. And we click on OK. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we are going to go to vocabulary, open vocabulary editor, and we are going to delete Dragon commands. When I get to vocabulary editor, I'm going to go to the bottom where it says display, and I'm going to change this to custom words only. I'm sorry, not custom words only. Words with spoken forms only. And here we're going to find some things that can cause some problems with our user. For example, all caps on, and all caps off should be deleted. So I will select those 3 and I will delete them. Next, we have cap next, cap on, and cap off. And I will delete those. Then we're going to come down to no caps off, no caps on, no space off, no space on. Those all need to be deleted. These things can cause problems, as if you have no space on, it can have all your words run together as one big word, and you don't want that to happen. And so once we have done this, we're going to close out of vocabulary editor, and we're going to go to profile, and we're going to save user profile. One thing that you will notice, and one thing that I like to do when I'm working with vocabulary editor, is I like to save my speech files frequently. Because if I make a mistake by deleting the wrong word or mistraining a word, I exit and do not save the changes, so those will not stick. Okay. Now that we've done that, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to vocabulary, and we're going to import a list of words or phrases. We have created marker files for questions, answers, speakers, and untranslates. It's a universal list that works for most people. So when the import list of words or phrases comes up, we'll click on next. And at the word list screen, we click on add file. And we are going to browse to the C drive. We're going to search for topic files. I don't have that list on my computer, so I'm going to use the basic.
It's okay. They're very much the same.
Okay, and so I go to topic files and then I find the folder that says marker files, and I'm going to use the marker file.txt. As you can see, we have numerous lists here, but for now, we're just going to use the marker file.txt, which is the basic generic one. And I like the marker file because it has less of the things I don't use. So I click on next, I click on next again, and then I click on finish. And what do? We save our user file. So we'll go to Profile, Save User Profile. This is a very common thing. If you add the word list and you don't save the user profile, that is why your markers may not show up. I believe that was the case for a couple of people. And so saving the user profile is very important. If you bring the word list in, you train the word list, but you do not save the user profile, you will not have the words. So that is why I like to save frequently. So I'm going to go back to vocabulary and I'm going to go to open vocabulary editor. And now I display and I change this to custom words only, and voila. Here I have my markers, my Q&A, and speakers and untrans up to 10. So what I'm going to do now is I say ACO and QCO for my Q&A. So I'm going to train them. I select ACO. I click on train. It's going to prompt me to choose the proper spoken form, and for me that's ACO. So I'm going to click on OK. Now this is where it can get a little tricky. Okay, so here we are. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the mask to my face and I'm going to click on train. I'm going to say ACO in my dictation voice, not in my, I'm not going to speak like I'm speaking to you. I'm going to speak in my dictation voice because that is what I want Dragon to understand. I'm going to say ACO one time. I'm going to let it finish, and then I'll come back to you and explain what we're going to do from that point. Now, you'll notice that as I was saying the word and as I'm talking, this bar here shows the yellow is when I'm not speaking and it's green when I am. So what I did is I clicked on train and I said the word one time. You do not want to say it multiple times. You click on train, you say it once. You pause, you wait for the word train to come back again, and you click on train again and say it once more. You will do that. You want to train the markers 5 times each, especially the Q and the A. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, I've done it 5 times. I'm going to click on save. Now I'm going to go to the Q. Typically, for most people, the Q and the A are the things that need to be trained. For most people, the speakers just work. And I'm going to show you that after I train the Q, I'll show you how to test them. So I'm going to click on the Q and train. I'm going to select the proper spoken form. Okay, then I'm going to save. I'm going to close out of this, and I'm going to go to Profile, Save User Profile. What I've just done is I've saved the acoustic information I just trained with the word. Now I'm going to go to Tools and drag and pad. And I'm going to test what I just trained. Okay, so what I've just done is I've tested my Q&A and I've tested all of my speakers and my untranslates. And I did not train the speakers or untranslates, and they work, which is amazing. This is the written form of the word versus the spoken form of the word. And all of that for very little training. Okay? So I'm going to close out of this, and I'm going to say no to save the changes. Now, we're now going to do some learn from specific documents. And basically what this is, as I mentioned earlier, Dragon is designed for business people who write letters, memos, and things of that nature. And so court work is very different, the transcript with Q&A and speakers. And so by running learn from specific documents, we are giving Dragon some context of the way we're going to be working. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to vocabulary and learn from specific documents. Okay, this gives you information about what it's going to do. It can find unknown words, which is important in instances like, for example, we're in Louisiana and we have a lot of French names. And so if I run documents from Louisiana, it may find names that may not be typical in the normal vocabulary and dictionary. What's, in my opinion, the most important thing of learn from specific documents is adapt to writing style, because Dragon learns a lot from context, and this is what helps with the context. So I'm going to click on next. I'm going to add folder. I am going to go to the C drive again. I'm going to go to topic files. I'm going to run divorce. Click on divorce, and I click on OK. I believe that you guys have your own specific set of documents that I believe they're in documents, correct, Adria?
I think so. I think they're called resources for vocabulary building.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the place where we have these files on our server, and I'll run those. Yours will not be in the same location as mine, so yours will be in your documents. Okay, and so there should be context docs, which is the information that we use to run through. Oh. Okay, I am just going to run the documents I normally run through, because I'll be honest with you, I'm not real familiar with what your documents are. So I'm going to go ahead and
we don't have actual documents from them. We
okay.
only have lists that I've created, like street names, some of the terms they use, colloquialisms, and things like that.
Okay. I will go back to my topics file folder, and I usually run divorce and workers' comp and general litigation. So I'm going to add folder and do general litigation as well. And it's going to list all of the documents that I'm going to be using. And I click on next, and it's going to analyze each of those documents. And depending how big the files are, it could take a little time. I see your robot working in the background, Adria. Look. Okay. I'm going to click on next. And what's going to happen is Dragon is going to present me with a list of words that it found in these documents that does not exist in our current vocabulary. And so these are typically sorted by frequency, which is important because if you're looking at a document, I find that the misspelled words tend to be in the 1 or the 2s as opposed to being at the top. And so what you should do is look at the list and see if there are any words that you should add to your vocabulary. I typically will stay away from words that are all in uppercase and put only things that I know for a fact that I will use. So let me look at this list and see if there's anything here that I will want to add. Hey, my niece, they lived by La Jolla, so I'll add La Jolla. Okay, and you may see here that you will get curse words in the list. By default, Dragon does not have curse words. And so those, if you are doing criminal transcripts, or those words may come up, and if you know that they will come up, then you should add them to your vocabulary. So I'm going to add this word. Okay, and these words that have the hyphens in them, you do not want to add those. And if I'm running out of time, I will sometimes just completely disregard the words that have a 1 next to them. So I'm going to click on next. What I failed to mention is, by default, everything is unchecked. You will check the words that you want to add one by one. You click on next. It's going to take you to the train word screen. And on the train word screen, you want to check all, because when you're adding words this way, these are new words and there's no acoustic data stored with them in Dragon. So it's important that when you're adding them this way, that you train them before they get added to Dragon, so there is some acoustic data attached to them. So I did check all, and then I click on train, and I'm going to train it the same way I train the ACO, except in this case, when I click on train, it's going to present me with each word individually, and when that word comes up, I need to say that word as it appears. Typically, I only go through the word list once. What about you, Adria? Do you go through it more than once?
No, only if it doesn't work do I retrain.
Okay. Hi, Rio. Okay, so after I've done that, I click on save, and then I'm going to click on next. And what's going to happen, it's going to start adapting to my writing style. And this is where the context magic happens. And this can take some time if you're running a lot of documents through. Adria, does the record, does it record the chat too?
It does allow us to save the chat in text format.
Okay.
So I can save it and forward it to them.
Because you're giving them a lot of good information.
Yeah, I hope that it lets them download all of this stuff.
Okay, when it's done, we want to click on next and finish. And what do? We save our user profile so that we don't lose those changes, because that's some important stuff. Okay, so now I'm going to go to profile, and I'm going to exit Dragon. Okay, and I'm going to open up Transcriptionist. I'm going to create a new job. I'm going to make sure that the style I select is RealTime Coach. And I'm going to click on OK. Oh, I have to tell you, I have failed in my duties. I'm going to close out of Transcriptionist and we're going to go back to Dragon. And we're going to talk about a couple of things that you should do. Once you have created a user, you've trained your markers, it's important that you export that user to a flash drive or to a location on your computer so that you have a backup of that user and you don't have to start from scratch. So you see, it only took us a few minutes to create the user. Sometimes when you're in a hurry to get work out, that those few minutes will be important. So if we go to Profile and Manage User Profiles, you'll be taken to the Manage User Profile screen. And here, if we highlight the user profile that we just created and we go to Advanced and Export, this allows us to create a backup of our user in a location that is safe and that we can have if something were to happen to our computer. That's the biggest thing, or if the user gets corrupted. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to browse to the USB drive that I have connected to my computer already. And I already have a folder for Dragon 15 user profiles. So I'm going to put my user profile there. It's going to copy the information to that location. And it tells you when it's complete. Adria, do you want me to share your little backup thing, or do you want to talk about that while I do?
Please take care of it now.
Okay. So Adria had this brilliant idea that it would be a good idea to simply bring that backup of the user profile and list it as a backup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Advanced, Import, and I am going to import that user profile. Now it asks me if I want to override it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say import with a different name. And I'm going to put backup with today's date. Okay. And what that's going to do is now I'm going to have the user profile the regular way, which is the primary user, and then the backup, which is dated the day that I brought it in and the date that I created it. This is important because if something happens, you have it right there at the tip of your fingertips. Okay? And so when you're opening the profile, you can choose either one of the profiles that you have. Now, one thing that I noticed, a few of you had numerous users that you may not be using. And in the course, if you've created some users that you're not going to be using, it would be a good idea to remove those, especially if you made mistakes and they weren't good users. It's a good idea, in my opinion, to delete the things you will not be using. So what I'm going to do now is if you have some user profiles that you want to remove, if you go to profile, and let me explain this, it's important that you know which user profile is the good one. Because if you choose the incorrect user when you're going into a job, your recognition will be horrible and you'll be frustrated and you won't know why that is. So it's important, it's imperative that you know what is the good user that you should be using and why you should be using that, and make sure that when you're going in to dictate that you always select that user. I'll give you just a little funny story about we mostly work with court reporters who do court work, and I was at a seminar in South Carolina, and we were doing training. I was showing them how to use Dragon or how to enhance their recognition. This particular customer had created a separate user because lots of times the customers, when their church knows what they do for a living, they're usually people who are hard of hearing or deaf at the churches. And so this customer had created a separate user specifically for church so that she could redictate what the minister was saying, so that she could have the deaf and hard of hearing people could see what the pastor was saying. And so when we were in the job, and let me back up. And for that church user, she actually ran through the Bible so that her user would understand the terminology that's used in the Bible. And she used the specific version that was relevant to her church. And so when we were in class and we were dictating Q&A, questions and answers, they were not coming up and the recognition was horrible. And she got really upset. And come to find out she had chosen the wrong user. So, if you go into a job one day and all of a sudden your recognition is stinky, then you may want to make sure that you have selected the right user. And a way that you can eliminate that from happening is removing all of the users you may have created erroneously while trying to get set up for class. And so with that being said, if you go to Profile, Manage User Profiles, you will be able to delete user profiles that are not necessary. For example, the GN microphone is this microphone here that I'm using to dictate to you. This is what I use to do CART. And so I would not want to delete that microphone, but let's say this Smarty Pants user, I'm not going to use this, so I'm going to go ahead and delete it. And so you want to make sure you're not deleting your good user. And if it's something that you think you might use later, you could back up like we just did. You can export it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this. And then that's it. I've deleted that user. So it would be a good exercise for you to delete any extra users you created in the process of getting to the point that you are now. So now I'm going to, is there anything else I should show them while I'm in Dragon, Adria?
Perhaps just one more time, go over with them how to change your dictation source should that become unselected.
Okay, well, how about if I show them what happens when your mask is not plugged in? Okay.
Great idea.
So keep in mind, if you go into Dragon or Transcriptionist into record. So if you go into Dragon or if you go into Transcriptionist and your mask is not plugged in, I want to show you what's going to happen. So I'm going to go into Transcriptionist because aside from creating the user, everything that you do should be in Transcriptionist from here on out. So here's the job I just created. And I'm going to click on Dictate. My mask is not plugged in, so I want to show you what's going to happen when the mask is not connected. Okay, I'm going to open up my user that I just created. Okay, and this message popped up. Okay, this means that my device is not connected. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to plug it in. And you can see that once I plug it in, it's not grayed out anymore, and I can select it. So I select it, and I should be able to move on. Now, I'm going to do a dictation from a file that I have instead of doing a dictation from RealTime Coach, because I want to show you how to do correction mechanism. Alrighty. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the microphone off. And I'm going to show you how to do correction. Now, okay, we talked earlier about the practice miss words, but in my opinion, doing correction mechanism is the way to help your accuracy. And my suggestion to you is this week you're going to learn and you're going to practice with correction mechanism. And what I would suggest is you dictate one of the videos, and then you correct it before you dictate it again. And you will see that the recognition will improve. And you should continue to do that as you work with them. Now, will you do correction mechanism on the whole job? No. You will correct for 5 to 10 minutes. You can set a timer on your phone to do correction. And then you push the corrections through, and you can dictate again. So I'm going to go ahead and make my screen full screen now. And I'm going to show you how to do corrections. So first of all, you'll notice at the beginning, I always do a warm-up before I start dictating, and before I do, like if you're going to be doing RealTime Coach, before you click on the dictate to active window and you get your video ready, always Dragon takes, in my opinion, a little bit to get started. So at the beginning, I do like QCO, ACO, SPI1, SPI2, SPI3, and then testing, 1, 2, 3, or something of that sort to give Dragon a little nudge to wake up. Okay, so I'm not going to do any correction on anything above the Q because that was just my test. And so I hope that you can hear my So in order to get into correction, you put your cursor where you want to start correction, which would be where you started dictating, and the A with the pencil will take you into correction mode. It will, if you are doing your dictation in the same instance where you've just dictated, doing correction, it will prompt you to save your voice data.
How many entrances?
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the correction off and click on save to save my dictation, my voice data, and then I'm going to go back into correction.
Entrances.
Okay.
Hugo, are there for how many entrances?
So what you have to do is basically listen to what you hear and have the text in that utterance. Let me back up for a second. An utterance is a unit that Dragon handles as one item. It may contain one word, may contain numerous words, but Dragon sees that as a whole. And because of that, when we do correction, we correct to the utterance. And so as I move around, you'll notice that one utterance may have one word and one utterance may have multiple words. Okay, so I find as well that when I'm doing correction, it is better for me to have a headphone on and listen to the audio because I can hear it much better. So here I am in correction, and if I want to play this audio again, I do Alt-P.
How many entrances, Hugo, are there?
Oh.
How many entrances?
Okay, so what I said was how many entrances. And so I typed in how many, but entrances should not be capitalized. So I press Control I as in Isaac to take the capitalization away from entrances because I don't want it to be capitalized. Okay? And I'm going to make the text in that utterance match exactly what I say. So I'm going to do Alt-P.
How many entrances?
Okay. Then I'm going to do page down.
There's just one entrance. Hugo, how many exits are there for customers?
Okay. So I'm going to go over the rules of correction, and I'm about to show you the very first one. I said, are there for customers, ACO. And instead of it putting my A, it put takeout. Remember, this is a new user, and it may not recognize all of my markers. Now, when you are correcting, you have to correct to the written form of the word versus the spoken form of the word. And to show you this, I'm going to go into Vocabulary Editor, and I'm going to show you custom words only. You have two columns here. You have the written form, which is what Dragon puts out, and you have the spoken form, which is what you say. When I say ACO, it should write out asterisk A asterisk. Now, you'll see in the text, when I say the ACO, the A's are formatted, and it recognizes it. They're formatted the way they should be. But when you do correction, you have to correct to the written form of the word versus the spoken form of the word. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to type in asterisk A asterisk with a space. And then if I press Control D, that will delete the words that are incorrect. That is my favorite hotkey because it deletes a whole word and instead of having to press delete, delete, delete. Now, I'm going to press Alt-P again.
Are there for customers, ACO? There's just one entrance. Hugo, how many exits are there for customers? ACO.
Okay,
oops. For customers, ACO, there's...
Okay, so here we have the wrong form of the word there. So if I do Control Y, this is the hotkey for word swap. It's gonna, if you look at the word there, it's gonna change between the different forms of the word there. And so I just do Control Y to get to THERE to change that word. And then I'm going to do Alt-P to play.
Are there for customers, ACO? There's just one entrance.
Okay, now, actually, this should be theirs. Just one entrance. I'm not a very good typist, so please excuse that. And then I'm going to do Control D to delete these extra words. But you never want to delete the red punctuation, okay? Because if you delete the red punctuation, that could mess up your DRA file, okay? So let me finish correcting this, and then I'll go over the rules of correction with you.
Are there for customers, ACO? There's just one entrance. Hugo, how many exits are there for customers? ACO.
Okay. The rest of the utterance was correct. Okay, so when you're correcting, there's 6 rules for correction. We've already gone over the first one, which is correcting to the written form of the word versus the spoken form. You should have received handies with, hold on. You should have received handies with your equipment. And on the handy, there is the rules of correction mechanism. So make sure you utilize those. So number one was correct to the written form of the word versus the spoken form. There's a little cheat sheet on there that shows you what the written form of the word of the markers are versus the spoken form. And if you don't know, you can go to vocabulary editor and take a look at it. Number two, make sure you spell the words correctly, because if you don't, those words will be added to your vocabulary and you'll have conflicts. Number three, don't add punctuation that you did not dictate. If you didn't say comma, if you didn't say period, don't put it in there because it needs to be there. Because when you're correcting and you're within an utterance, the only text that should be there is what you said. The red punctuation can be ignored because Dragon is going to be ignoring that punctuation, but that is the only thing that should be there that you didn't dictate. Number four, don't capitalize anything that is not a proper noun. As you notice with entrances, for the first utterance, I changed it to lowercase e because I wouldn't want to add it with a capital E and have another conflict. Number five, if any part of the utterance is unintelligible, you will not correct that utterance at all. It's all or nothing. So if I started to correct something like this and I decided, oh, I was slurring my words, I don't want to use that, right next to the A with the pencil, which is the correction mode button, is a green and red circle. This is called toggle correction. Anything that is red will be ignored by Dragon and will not affect your recognition. Now, because this was a good utterance, I'm going to toggle it again so that it is green. And last but not least, you do not put a word that you meant to say versus what you actually said. If you meant to say hamburger and you said cheeseburger, you have to put hamburger because that's what you actually said. That's not a good example, but you have to keep that in mind. And back to corrections. You'll notice that most of the text is black. The black text indicates that that's the text that Dragon recognized and put out for you. The green text, and it might be hard to see the color, but as I started correcting, the text turned green. This indicates that this is text that I've made corrections through that I want to save to Dragon, but they have not gone through yet. And then, of course, you see the red punctuation. This is to indicate to you that this is text that SpeechCat has edited and it has not been done through Dragon, and therefore it will be ignored by Dragon. And we have a last but not least, and I'll show you that in a minute. Once you have done corrections, I'll do one more correction.
There's just one.
And look, that was perfect. So you know what? When I'm training people, when they have their first perfect utterance, I tell them to get up and do a happy dance. Woo! Right? Okay. So, because that means that Dragon is understanding you. So, okay, so we've done the corrections and we're ready to move forward. We have not actually pushed them through to Dragon yet. So what we're going to do here is the next part of this is going to utterance summary. If you look on your button bar, you'll see a green speech bubble with a table inside of it. If you click on this, this is going to open utterance summary. An utterance summary is a way for you to listen to every correction you've made and assure one last time that those corrections are correct. One thing that you might have noticed already, and we talked on briefly last week, is Dragon does great with big words. It's the little words that it misrecognizes. And it's also the little words that we make mistakes when we're doing corrections. So this utterance summary is a way for us to just make sure that what we're pushing through to Dragon is actually correct. First thing I normally do here is I maximize the screen because some of my utterances, especially in the beginning, can be long, and it just gives me a way to see more of it. Now, by default, all of the check boxes here for apply are checked. Okay. And so what we're going to do, what you do when you listen is you focus on the corrected side, not the original. And if any part of that utterance is incorrect, you would uncheck it as not to put it through. So I'm going to click on the first utterance and click on play.
How many entrances
Okay. And then the second one.
are there for customers? Echo. There is just one entrance. Kiko. How many exits are there for customers? Echo.
Okay, so both of my utterances are correct. I will click on, once you have gone through each utterance and made sure it's correct, you click on the word correct. That screen is going to disappear. And if you notice down in the status, it says corrections are being applied. Please wait or select cancel. So I'm just going to wait and be patient. And it'll come back and say speech files have been modified since the last save. Would you like to do so? And we want to say yes. You'll notice now that the text turns blue. This indicates to you that these changes have actually been pushed through to Dragon, and you've just done your first correction. And that's it for correction mechanism. Do you have anything else to add, Adria? Can't hear you. Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay. The only thing I was going to suggest is that you just tell them about reformat fix corrected markers.
Yes. I will say this. If you're going to be doing another dictation of the same video, you will want to wait to do this after you've completed all your dictations, because once you do this next step, you will most likely lose the ability to correct. But I want to show you that here's the A that I corrected that was wrong. So once I do correction, if I go to reformat, fix corrected markers, it's going to take any of the markers that I corrected and put them in the proper format for me. And that's the last thing.
And that also works for speakers.
Yes, it does. Like, let me do that. Let's see.
And I'm not sure if we've told them about untrans yet.
No. And there it does. That was it doing the student. Okay. So that's it for correction and creating a user. Now it looks like we only have about 13 minutes left. Do you want to leave the rest of the class? Is there anything else we need to cover? I guess you should talk about, we need to talk about the dictations they have to do this week. And then the quizzes. I guess we don't need to cover them since they're already in the document. Just remember, everyone, please don't use practice miss words, because as I said, moving forward, I have put all the scores in, but moving forward using text mode will result in a 0 for that dictation, and there will be no what's the word I'm looking for? There will be no exceptions.
The only other thing that I would like to mention today is, as you are doing your dictations, something that helped, two things that helped me when I was in your position, just beginning to dictate. Number one, I would find something on the wall, a spot, a picture, anything, and focus on that with my eyes. Because remember that, we have multiple senses, and our eyes are taking something in, our ears are taking something in. So it would be great if you could just focus on one thing with your eyes, so that your eyes not taking in additional information. And really, in the beginning, I closed my eyes, actually, when I was dictating, so that I could really just focus on what I was hearing. And the second thing that really helped me was learning to say things in phrases. So if a question is short, I'll say the whole thing. Kiko, please state your name and address for the record. And that's when I breathe. I try to breathe I try to get as much out in one breath as I can, but I like to do phrases. So while I'm saying that one phrase, I'm listening to the next phrase. This is not easy. Do not let anybody tell you that this is easy. It is challenging, but you can do it. You will do it. You will succeed. I promise you. Many, many, many people have come before you and succeeded when they thought they could not. So focus your eyes or close your eyes so that you really just try to give as much to the sense of hearing as you can. It is best when you are not loud enough in your mask to hear yourself. Because when you can hear yourself, it's very, very distracting. So try to make sure that the audio you're listening to in your ear or out loud is as loud as possible. That way you hear more of that than yourself. It's very common in the beginning to be able to hear yourself, even to hear yourself very loudly. I'm sure that if you guys all decided to do a dictation after this class in the same room, you would notice a tremendous hum once you all started talking. That's what happens when people talk into the mask, because if you haven't perfected being quiet so that people don't hear you outside the mask, we can still hear you. Now, in your job, you're not going to be in the courtroom. So people will not be staring at you going, oh my God, I can hear every word you say. Don't want that. But you may be in a room with other transcriptionists, and you want to keep the volume low so that you don't bother the people around you. So try to focus on giving your ears completely to the audio you're hearing, shielding your eyes from getting more information, and grabbing things in phrases. So listen for a phrase, say it while you're listening to the next phrase, say it while you're listening to the next phrase, say it, so that you're not really even paying attention to, and you're not listening certainly to what you are hearing. You are only listening to the room. And when you are doing those dictations and there's two people, the first person that speaks, he's the questioner. The second person that speaks is the answer. So another thing that we have not done is I train in Dragon Keek and Cack with no asterisk Q asterisk or asterisk A asterisk, because RealTime Coach does not like it when we use our markers. It throws RealTime Coach off. So when I am done with the class today, me or Michelle will make a video showing you guys how to go in and add Keek and Cack. That way you can use Keek and Cack when you're doing your dictations in RealTime Coach, so that it doesn't kick you out, because that's what it does for me. It kicks me out when I use our markers. But if I use Keek and Cack, it doesn't kick me out. So we will do a short video on adding Keek and Cack for you, and we'll send it to you on the Skype thread to help you do that yourselves. But I think that we have covered a great deal today, and I think we've given you a lot of really great information. So as soon as the video renders, I'll send you that first link that comes straight from the Zoom site. And what I do is I import the video and I cut out all the dead air and the time when we're doing roll call and stuff like that, so that you don't have to waste your time listening to that a second time. And I leave only what's valuable, if you notice that, from last week's video. And remember, you will have access to these videos indefinitely. There's no time when we're going to say, no more videos for you. That's never going to happen. You will have access to all these videos now and for years to come. So know that accessing these videos after the fact is a great way of absorbing what you may have missed. And another thing I'd like to encourage, and I think some of you might have already been doing this, I like to encourage the buddy system. So when you go and you're going through an exercise, Michelle and I are both techs. We've both done this for a very long time. But we come from very different perspectives. And that's just the way our brain works. And what I pick up, sometimes she misses. And what she picks up, sometimes I miss. So together, when you have a buddy, and a buddy that is not like you is the best buddy, because then you'll be able to help each other. These tests are meant to be open book. I don't care what you look at while you're taking the test, but I care that you take the test. I care that you take it on time. All of the quizzes that are listed on this sheet that I sent you, these sheets that I sent you this morning, they're on the very last page. Those are the quizzes you're responsible for this next week. They have to be finished by Monday at 5 p.m. Okay? Now, if you have questions about something we covered during class, go back and watch the videos, because that means you didn't really pick it up. You need to see the lesson again. If you have a question about something we did not cover, then please write it in the Skype thread that we all share, because truly, you guys, everybody has the same questions. You ask them at different times, but you all have very similar questions. And so we appreciate when you ask it in the chat. That way we're educating everybody with your question. And we appreciate that very much. So do we have to go through all that we did in class today before the next class? Yes, you will do that. Everything that we went through in class today is what you need to go through yourself on your own. You can watch the video while you do it, no problem. But yes, you should go through all of those things. And what happens to the additional videos that I have done? I did 5. The additional videos, if they were selected, well, let Michelle answer that, because that's her thing. Michelle?
Say as long as you do them by Tuesday, because what I will do Wednesday morning, the day of the class, I will print out everyone's list of what they have done and accomplished. Now this shows me the progress from the beginning. And so every dictation that you have done has been marked within our spreadsheet. And you, of course, should be marking your spreadsheet. But just to show you, let me open that up real quick. I'm only focused, as Adria says, I'm only focused on the RealTime Coach. And I'm not trying to call out anybody, or just to show you, everybody's dictations are listed. And we record everything. So if you've done more dictations than was necessary, it is recorded. If, as your grades change, if you go back and do dictations again, those higher scores will be recorded. So keep that in mind. This form is what I get the information from. It lists every dictation and your highest score. So we are recording everything.
Michelle, could you tell them about the videos that you have at the very bottom of the page?
Yes. So let me open that up again.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Can y'all still see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the way that this is all worked out is you'll notice that everything is color coded. And that's per the week that you're required to do the dictation. If you choose to do more dictations, that is fine as well. But you'll notice that each up to, in your spreadsheet, up to the brighter green, those are all of the required dictations. Below that are additional dictations for practice or substitution. Now, the substitutions, we will not be doing substitutions unless we find that there's a problematic video. And thus far, there is not one, all the way up to the 170s. So at this point, there will be no substitutions. We know that there's a couple of videos that are a little bit harder. And so if you have a problem and have spent a lot of time trying to get through a video and you cannot, we will discuss that and make recommendations as they come along. Just to let you know, there's a video for, it's called, here it is. It's at 155. It's guess. And the verbiage, I had difficulty with that video because of the verbiage. I did it and I got through it. I suggest that you try hard to get through the video. If you have trouble, you can message. I would suggest though that when you have these suggestions that you put in the thread with everyone else. It's important because if you're having problems with something, chances are someone else is having problems with that video. So just keep that in mind. And then at the bottom, all of these additional practice and substitutions, if you need, if you're at 135 and you're struggling with 135, there are 2 additional videos at that speed that you can practice. And remember, as I stated last week, when you're driving in the car, if you listen to NPR or talk radio, or even watching TV, try repeating what's being said because that will help you. Because it's honing the skill. Even if you're not dictating into your mask, you are practicing the act of re-speaking, which is important. And just so you know, some of these extra videos, when we were choosing the videos that were going to happen, I found I had difficulty with the 4-voice dictations. And so we took those out of what the requirements were. And some of them are here. What else? What else did I want to say?
That if you ever substitute and you have to get Michelle's permission to substitute a video, it has to be, if it's a Q&A 2-voice at 170 that you can't do, it has to be replaced with another Q&A 2-voice at 170. And you have to get Michelle's permission before you do.
Or above.
It
can't be a lesser speed. It can't be 1 voice, because the whole purpose, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be transcribing multiple voices. And the whole purpose of this class is to get you acclimated to being able to do that. And that's what we're trying to do with the videos.
Janelle, you asked a really good question. Pardon me. Janelle said, so just to reiterate, the dictations are due by Tuesday and the quizzes by Monday at 5 p.m. Yes, that's correct. Right, Michelle?
Yes, and it could be, I'm going to check them Wednesday morning. So it can be at midnight, like 11:30 on Friday, as long as it's done by when I get into work on Wednesday morning. So.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions that we can answer before we end our lesson today?
I want to say one more thing.
Please.
Thank you to everyone for getting all of your dictations for this week done. I'm very proud of all of you. You deserve a round of applause.
There's another good question, Michelle.
Wait up,
it's recommended to pre-listen to a video before dictating.
To be honest with you, I think that instead of pre-listen, just dictate it. Because, if you do 50% on the video, that's okay. And my suggestion, like what I've been doing as I've been working through the videos, is if I am dictating and then I get kind of like befuddled and I miss a few words, just start back where
you can.
And it will go on from that. And
I don't think you should pre-listen. I think you should try, every time you try, I think you should try to dictate. Because even if you get a very low percentage, you've dictated and you're honing your skill. You know, it's not a good idea to know what the topic is about, because what we've learned from voice writers is that it's not about knowing what the information is that you're getting. It's about just re-speaking it. Try not to get caught up in saying, ooh, that's an interesting case, I want to know about it. You just want to re-speak what you heard.
It's almost regurgitation. You're listening and repeating, listening and repeating, listening and repeating. So it's almost like a little 2-year-old. They say everything you say when they first learn to talk. You are basically doing exactly that. Even if you do not understand a word that they use, if you just repeat it the way they say it, chances are Dragon will recognize it. So keep that in mind. And also, one more thing I want to say about quizzes, exams, and dictations. Dictations you can do as many times as you want. You can go back and redo them and earn better scores. Quizzes and exams you can take twice, and only twice. You only have to have a score by Monday at 5. It does not have to be the final score. So you can wait until the last week of class and retake the exams if you'd like. Just get one score by Monday afternoon for each exam. Does that make sense? This is yes. This is no.
Well, not everyone has video, so we can't.
Right? That's true.
Yeah, and we've gone over, so we need to thank you.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you all for being such a great class and asking such good questions. We appreciate you.
We do. And we will see you next Wednesday, and we will talk to you every day until then.
I will not be in next week.
Oh, yeah. Michelle's going on vacation. A cruise, I think.
Yes, I'm going to be as far south as Jamaica. So.
All right. She'll be in you guys' part of the world.
Yes. So I will see y'all the following week.
That's right. Y'all have a great, great day. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.